gold took a big hit today.
It did.
You know, huge. What do you think's going on there? You wrote an article about it this morning, I believe.
I did, and I'm really taken by the idea that every accounting of gold that I've seen, so Eric Sprott did one recently, which was very nice work, and he added up, he combed through all of the export data that is actually put out by the Commerce Department, and went line by line and went back, I guess, 20 or 30 years. Can't quite remember exactly how long, and said, how much gold did the U.S. export? And came up with a number, and then asked the question, well, how much gold did the U.S. mine? So that was presumably in the borders, and we could export that or keep it. And then added in all the scrap and everything else and said, wait a minute, in the past 30 years, if that was the time frame, the United States apparently has exported 4,500 tons of gold that can't be accounted for anywhere else in the system. So where did that come from? It dwarfs anything you could possibly imagine as scrap being melted down from jewelry and things like that. There's no private source that he could identify, so the conclusion was that had to have come from some official source. So now fast forward to the other accounting trick on central bank balance sheets is that when they account for that gold, let's give the Fed a couple credits and say, okay, it's yours. On their line, they'll say gold and gold lease.
Right, which is an asset and a liability being kept track of as a single line item.
It's a single line item. It should at least be two line items. But you know, to say physical gold I have in my possession plus this stuff I loaned out and took money back, because that money probably shows up elsewhere on their balance sheet anyway, right? So, so to carry what you've leased out and the stuff you actually own is the same item. It just violates all sorts of accounting rules and just common sense.
And is completely illegal in the private sector and would get you fines or shut down or go to jail.
Something like that, as well it should, because it's it's a material misstatement of your current condition financially. So it's a material financial misstatement. And all I know is that, you know, if you can believe the work Eric Sprott did, there's 4,500 tons missing. And there are not that many places that could come from. So I'm getting to why I think gold is slammed today. Really important things happened recently where we had Venezuela wanted their 99 tons back, and then all these other little countries said, hey, we want our gold back, or started making noises about it. But the big bombshell was Germany saying, we'd like 676 tons of our gold back, half of that coming from France, the other half, only 300 tons-ish, coming from the United States. And the answer was, that'll take 7 years for us to ship that to you.
Yeah, I have said they should have asked me because I could ship it for them if the Federal Reserve has a problem. I'll make arrangements and we'll get it over there within the week.
Within the week. So, it shouldn't be that hard.
Right.
And they make it sound like, oh, well, that's 7 years. So if you understand how gold leasing actually works, it's a really sweet game, right? It's a nice game. So a central bank says, well, I have all this gold, and officially they say, well, it's just sitting there collecting dust, barbarous relics. So they would like to get some income from it. So they will lease it to a bullion bank, who will typically get it at something around 1% for a whole year. So if a bullion bank took $1 billion of gold from the Federal Reserve, they only have to pay 1% on that. So then they'll take that, sell it into the market, take the proceeds, invest that in treasury bills.
When treasuries paid 5%.
Right, or even you can still get 3% on a 30-year, right? Yeah. And you flip it out at the end of the year. So now they're going to get a 2% spread for free. Right. And if they really wanted to get clever about it, they could take insurance out and do some offsetting futures that'll cost them about 1%. But still, they're going to get 1% risk-free. Well, if you're a bank that has an infinite lending ability and the Federal Reserve has all this gold, how much would you borrow? I'd be like, as much as you will lease me. Just give me as much as you can, because I'd rather have 1% on 10 billion than 1% on 1 billion. So this is the game, and they've taken all this gold and leased it out into the market, which obviously, when you're selling gold into the market like that in those quantities, that's price suppressive. There's a lot of supply in the market. And this all works great as long as there's no disruption in that system, because essentially what they're doing, that's fractional reserve gold lending, because the Federal Reserve says, well, we have this gold. In fact, we're holding a lot of gold on reserve for other countries, like Germany. And they've leased a lot of gold out into the market. They say they've leased it. They won't tell us how much, but we think it must be around 4,500 tons based on this other work. So if there's 4,500 tons out in the market, that's probably 1.8 years of mine production worldwide, if you could even buy the whole world's mine production. China won't let you have theirs, but so there's all this gold out there, and once it gets leased out into the market, the bullion bank thinks, well, they've probably leased that themselves to this next party, who might have leased it to another party. In fact, that 4,500 tons might have 3, 5, 10. We don't know how many people who think that's mine. And so this all works great until you have the equivalent of a bank run, where somebody comes out and says, I'm going to withdraw all my money and I'm going to take it home. That's what I think Germany represents.
Germany did. Yes, right.
They say, hey, can we have that? And maybe the German 300 tons itself over 7 years wouldn't have bankrupted this, but they must have gotten nervous and said, well, if just 3 more countries do that, this thing just breaks. And so I think they got nervous. And so I've watched the gold market carefully enough, long enough. I traded the futures very aggressively at a point in time. So I understand how the market works. And when I see at 12:05 in the morning, 3,000 big gold contracts get dumped within a single 1-minute tick, that has only one possible explanation, and that is somebody was attempting to drive the price down in that moment, because it's a thin market, it's in the overnights, it's a concentrated dumping of positions. They always explain it the next day in the news. They go, oh, that was an investor unwinding. Well, they must be the worst investor in the world. Like, if that was a hedge fund, you should just fire them right now, because that was ridiculous. That's not unwinding. That's clearly price manipulation. So I've seen enough of these price manipulations coming several months now that I've said, oh, somebody is trying to just drive the price down. And so today, we saw this big sort of success in that story. There was a huge price reduction, almost $70 in gold in a single day. It's huge. And guess what's going to happen as a consequence of that? GLD is going to get a lot of redemption calls from nervous people, mostly small investors. Probably several hundred tons will be disgorged from GLD as a consequence of this. And I think a misconception people hold is to think, oh, all that gold just, it got sold. So it's just gold is just sort of floating around in the market like there's excess gold. But every single second, every ounce of gold is owned by somebody. All I know for sure is that GLD now owns less of it, and somebody else owns more of it. If the more of it side of this is not bullion banks, I will be deeply, deeply surprised, or other financial parties and intermediaries who are part of this gold leasing chain and network. It feels to me like this was a move designed to shake out a bunch of weak hands, scare up a bunch of gold, and pull it into the official side of the system.
To cover shorts.
Probably, to cover the leasing and the other shorts.
When you lease something out and you owe it to somebody else, you have to get it back to be able to return it.
Absolutely.
So there's Germany over there, and it's leased to J.P. Morgan through the Federal Reserve.
And the best way to get something from somebody is to convince them they don't want it. So, oh no, the price went down. I better get rid of this stuff, you know. And that's one of the great mysteries of financial assets and monetary assets, that the lower in price they go, the less of them people seem to want. And the higher in price they go, the more
Don't buy it when it's on sale. Buy it when it's in a bubble.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So this, to me, it's if it's not now, very shortly we're going to have just a historic another opportunity as a buying opportunity. Instead, you know, I note this whole gold leasing scheme, and there's a part of me that says, well, that's just wrong. I get a little cranky about it because I can see the manipulation for what it is. It's just people who are less sophisticated or less well connected being fleeced and coughing up their gold to people who are more well connected and more deep pocketed. So I get a little cranky at that. And on the other hand, I'm like, well, thank you for this opportunity to buy more very precious substance, get more money at a cheaper price. I personally am happy with that. So I hope that people don't take this as an opportunity to say, I really can't, I don't want to be in that substance because look, it's hated and nobody wants it. That it's really, that is going to be one of the cruelest jokes ever played on people who get scared away from gold and silver at this moment in history, given where we are. And it's just surprising that they're able to get away with this again and again and again.
Right. When you all the news that keeps on coming out during this consolidation and pullback suggests that gold should be far, far higher than it is right now.
Absolutely. With what's going on in Cyprus and Japan, with North Korea threatening nuclear, I mean, this is a great moment of uncertainty in the world history.
And gold is falling, right.
And gold is falling, and right on cue, just exact moment that the orchestra hit that note, you get the New York Times coming out with an article about why gold has lost its luster, and it's reported with glee in the upper banner of the Wall Street Journal that gold's really taken this tumble, and there's just this whole machine that's just set up ready to support the idea that gold is a hated asset and you should get out of it. But that marketing is directed at the little people, and I'm one of the little people in this story, right? I feel like somebody is trying to convince me and doing a very, very expensive, detailed job to convince me that I should be out of the one thing that I am certain is the only thing that I know about that can protect me from everything that we've just talked about today. And my concern is that something like Bitcoin, once it gets to a certain level of visibility, will not be left to be free. One thing I'm very confident in is that central banks and treasury departments world over hate competition.
And I've been saying a drowning man is dangerous to swim near.